I found the perfect way to get back at my nightmare boss, and I used her own work to do it. He had just started a new job at a major financial institution, sold to him as a high-stakes role on a special project team. The reality? He was working for Paula, one of the worst human beings he'd ever met. Every week, she would tear his reports apart over the tiniest, most meaningless details. He was looking for a way out, but before he left, he found something that would change the entire dynamic. He found her old files. This job was supposed to be his big break. He was told he'd be on a mini-project team, tackling complex financial problems with high-level visibility. It sounded prestigious, important. But from day one, it was clear he'd been sold a lie. The team was less of a strategic force and more of a mushroom farm. He was kept in the dark and fed, well, you know. His main job was compiling reports and gathering data from other employees who seemed absolutely terrified of his team, and by extension, his boss, Paula. Paula had a special talent for criticism. It wasn't constructive feedback, it was a form of psychological warfare. She seemed to find genuine joy in dismantling people's work, piece by piece, over the most ridiculous, nitpicky things. It was a classic bait and switch, and he knew almost immediately that he needed to escape. One of his core responsibilities was a weekly update on a set of oil warrants out of Nigeria. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, a warrant is basically an agreement to buy something at a specific price, no matter what the market is doing. In this case, someone held the option to buy oil at $30 a barrel. The problem? The market price had peaked at $90 a barrel. The potential loss for the company was massive. They had no idea if the person holding the warrant even knew what they had, but every week, the company had to monitor it, report on it, and prepare for a financial catastrophe. It was a high-pressure, high-stakes report. The numbers had to be perfect. And his numbers were perfect. Every single week. But that never mattered to Paula. Week after week after week, he would submit the report, and she would call him into her office to rip him a new one. It was never about the data. It was never about the crucial information. It was always about the format, the verbiage, the font size, the margins, trivial, meaningless things that had absolutely no impact on the report's accuracy or clarity. It was a power trip, plain and simple. She was flexing her authority just because she could, and he was forced to sit there and take it. The frustration was building into a constant, simmering rage. How do you win a game when the person in charge keeps changing the rules just to watch you lose? One afternoon, while digging through the company's shared network drive, he stumbled upon something interesting. An old, archived folder for a similar project from a few years back. He clicked it open. Inside were old reports, old cover letters, old presentations. And he saw the name on them. It was Paula's handiwork, from before she was promoted to management. And that's when the idea sparked. A dangerous, brilliant idea. He decided to run an experiment. He took the report for that week, the same one she always tore to shreds, and he meticulously reformatted it. He didn't just tweak it. He transformed it into an exact replica of her old work. He used her exact report structure. He copied her formatting down to the last detail. He even rewrote the cover letter using her own language, her own turns of phrase, verbatim. All he did was plug in the new, updated numbers and relevant information. Everything else was pure Paula. He printed it out, walked to her office, and handed it to her for review. He stood there, waiting, his heart pounding a little faster than usual. She absolutely lost her shit. Her face twisted as she scanned the first page. "What is this?" she snapped, looking up at him with pure disgust. "What happened to the old format?" He kept his voice steady, neutral. "Well, you never seemed to like what I was doing, so I thought it would be best to change it up." "Change it up?" she scoffed, flipping through the pages. "This is worse than before. This is probably the worst report you have ever submitted to me." And then she was off. She went on and on, for what felt like an eternity. She tore into the structure. She attacked the language. She eviscerated the layout. Every single element she criticized was something she herself had created years ago. He just stood there, silent, letting her dig her own grave. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He just watched her, his expression a perfect mask of calm indifference. When she finally ran out of steam, she glared at him. "What were you possibly thinking when you made these changes?" This was the moment. He looked her straight in the eye. I was thinking, he said calmly, that I should use the formatting and language that you used when you were doing a similar report a few years back. He reached into his bag and pulled out another set of papers, printouts of her old reports from the network folder. He placed them on her desk right next to the one she'd just been savaging. I found the folder online, he continued, and I used your past work verbatim. I just changed the numbers. You can compare them if you like. The silence in the office was deafening. She looked from his face, to the report in her hand, to the identical old reports on her desk. The color drained from her face. That smug, superior look she always wore just evaporated. She was left with a slack-jawed, dumbstruck expression. She had just spent 10 minutes passionately explaining why her own work was complete garbage. He broke the silence. So, he asked, his voice still perfectly level, if this version is so bad, should I go back to my old format then? She just stared at him, speechless. The gears were turning in her head, but she had nowhere to go. She was trapped, cornered by her own hypocrisy. Finally, without another word, she grabbed a pen, scribbled her signature on the report, and pushed it back across the desk. Send it as is, she mumbled, not meeting his eyes. He didn't move. Are you sure? He pressed. You just said it was basically unreadable. I just want to confirm that it's fine to send out. A flash of anger crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by defeat. It's fine, she snapped. We don't have time to redo them. Just send them. So he did. He walked out of her office, the signed report in his hand, feeling a sense of victory he hadn't felt in months. But he was smart. He knew this wasn't over. A person like Paula doesn't just admit defeat. They get vengeful. He went back to his desk and immediately saved every single file from that old network folder onto his local drive. All of her past work, her templates, her letters. He now had a complete arsenal. And just as he predicted, when he checked the network drive a few days later, her old project folder was gone. Deleted or moved to a private directory where he couldn't find it. She was trying to erase the evidence. But it was too late. He already had everything. This began a new cat and mouse game for the remainder of his time there. Each week, he would use one of her templates for his reports. Each week, she would start to criticize it. And each week, he would gently remind her that he was using her approved format. After a few more times of this, she finally broke. Where are you getting?